The signal arrived during the midnight shift at SETI's primary listening post in New Mexico. Dr. Maya Rodriguez wasn't supposed to be there that night, but a nagging feeling had kept her at her station long after her shift ended. The message repeated in perfect mathematical sequences, too perfect to be natural. "Director Patel, you need to see this." Maya's voice trembled as she sent the data to her supervisor's tablet. Within hours, the facility transformed from a quiet research station into a hub of frenzied activity. Military personnel and scientists from every major space agency crowded around monitors, their faces illuminated by screens displaying the incoming transmission. The message was elegant in its simplicity, a series of mathematical constants followed by a three-dimensional star map and a single plea in binary code: "Help us survive." The first visual contact came 3 days later. A ship emerged from what appeared to be a tear in space itself, its crystalline surface reflecting starlight like scattered diamonds. It was massive, nearly a kilometer in length, yet it moved with the grace of a dolphin through water. Director Patel stood beside Maya as they watched the vessel approach Earth's orbit. "The President is about to make first contact," he whispered. "Humanity's greatest moment, and you made it possible." The Meridians, as they called themselves, were beautiful in an alien way. Their bodies seemed to be made of living crystal, with patterns of light flowing beneath their translucent skin. Their ambassador, who called himself Evening Chime, moved with fluid grace despite Earth's stronger gravity. "We are a peaceful species," Evening Chime explained through a translator device to the United Nations Security Council. "Our civilization spans 17 star systems, all connected through quantum bridges we created. We have no weapons, no armies. We never needed them." The alien's inner light dimmed as he continued. "Then the Voidborn found us. They are different. They exist to consume, to destroy. Their ships tear apart reality itself to travel between stars. They've already destroyed 3 of our worlds." Holographic images appeared above the council table, showing massive black ships that seemed to absorb light itself. The footage showed these vessels methodically destroying cities, their weapons cutting through meridian shields like they weren't there. "Your species is different," Evening Chime said, his light pulsing with hope. "We've observed you from afar. You've survived wars, natural disasters, and countless challenges that would have destroyed lesser species. You've turned the very forces that tried to destroy you into tools for survival. We need that strength now." Admiral James Chen, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, studied the tactical data from the Meridian attacks. "These Voidborn, they've never faced real resistance." "No," Evening Chime replied. "They've only encountered peaceful species like ourselves. They've never fought anyone who could fight back." Chen's expression hardened. "Then they've never learned to adapt, to overcome real challenges." He turned to the assembly. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at an enemy that's technologically superior, but tactically inferior. They've never had to evolve their strategies because they've never needed to." The Security Council chamber erupted in debate. Some nations advocated immediate intervention, while others urged caution. The discussion might have continued for days if not for the arrival of new footage from a Meridian colony under attack. They watched in horror as Voidborn ships systematically destroyed civilian vessels trying to evacuate. The screams needed no translation. "We cannot stand by and watch this happen," the Brazilian representative declared, rising to her feet. "Humanity knows too well the cost of silence in the face of genocide." One by one, the nations of Earth agreed. They would fight. As the meeting concluded, Maya found herself in a quiet corner with Evening Chime. "Why us?" she asked. "There must be other advanced species in the galaxy." The alien's inner light pulsed softly. "Other species evolved in gentle worlds. Dr. Rodriguez, they never had to become strong. But your world, Earth, is what we call a crucible planet. Every day of your evolution was a fight for survival. Every step of your development was earned through blood and determination. He gestured to the stars visible through the window. The galaxy is full of species that exist. Humanity is one of the few that truly lives. In orbit, the first human warships were already being modified with Meridian technology. Earth had spent its entire history learning to fight and survive. Now those hard-learned lessons would serve a greater purpose. The Voidborn had no idea what they'd awakened. They thought themselves invincible because they'd never faced a species forged in the crucible of a death world. They were about to learn why Earth's children had survived every challenge their harsh world had thrown at them. The age of peace in the galaxy was over. The time for justice had begun. The transformation of Earth's military infrastructure happened faster than anyone thought possible. Within weeks, shipyards that once built aircraft carriers were retooled to construct hybrid vessels combining human ingenuity with Meridian technology. Admiral Chen stood at the observation deck of the newly established Lunar Command Center, watching as the first of these ships took shape in orbit. "Remarkable," Evening Chime said, his crystalline form reflecting the Earth's blue glow. "Your species adapts so quickly. You've achieved in weeks what would take us decades." "Necessity," Chen replied, studying the holographic tactical displays. "Humans work best under pressure. Always have." He gestured to the largest vessel under construction. "The Meridian shields you provided are incredible, but they were designed to protect, never to fight back. We've modified them to reflect enemy fire back at twice the power." In the testing chambers below, Maya Rodriguez worked alongside Lieutenant Kai Patel, no relation to her former director, integrating human weapons systems with Meridian quantum technology. The aliens watched in fascination as the humans transformed their elegant devices into weapons of war. "Your power cores were designed to be perfectly stable," Kai explained to a group of Meridian engineers, their inner light pulsing with curiosity. "But if we introduce controlled instability, we can create directed energy pulses that their shields have never encountered. They won't know how to defend against it." The Meridians were particularly fascinated by human special forces training. In a massive simulator chamber, troops practiced fighting in zero gravity, their movements precise and lethal. Captain Elena Torres, commander of the newly formed Stellar Assault Division, demonstrated combat techniques that left the peaceful aliens in awe. "Your bodies," Evening Chime observed, watching Elena's team execute a complex boarding maneuver. "They seem to grow stronger under stress." "Adrenaline," Elena explained, removing her helmet. "Fight or flight response. Most species run from danger. Humans, we evolved to run toward it." In Washington, the newly formed Interstellar Defense Council gathered to review the first strategic assessments. Maya presented her analysis of Voidborn technology based on Meridian data and human theoretical work. "Their ships tear holes in space-time," she explained, pointing to simulation models. "It's incredibly advanced, but it's also their weakness. The process requires precise calculations. If we can disrupt those calculations even slightly..." She let the implications hang in the air. Admiral Chen nodded. "They've never had to account for an enemy actively interfering with their systems. They don't know how to adapt because they've never needed to." The first joint fleet assembled in lunar orbit 3 months after first contact. 20 ships, each a perfect fusion of human and Meridian technology. They weren't beautiful like pure Meridian vessels. They were predators, built for war by a species that had spent its entire history preparing for it. On the bridge of the flagship Terran Vengeance, Captain Elena Torres watched her crew run final systems checks. Humans and Meridians worked side by side, each bringing their unique strengths to the mission. The Meridians' natural ability to process complex data streams complemented the humans' intuitive combat instincts. "Fleet reports ready," her XO announced. All ships showing green across the board. Elena stood, addressing both her crew and the fleet. "For thousands of years, humanity looked to the stars and wondered if we were alone. Now we know the answer, and our first major action as a spacefaring species will be to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The Voidborn think themselves invincible because they've never faced an enemy who could truly fight back. They're about to learn why Earth is called a death world. In his quarters, Evening Chime reviewed the human battle plans with a mixture of awe and concern. Their strategies were unlike anything his people had ever conceived. Unpredictable, aggressive, yet carefully calculated. You intend to strike multiple targets simultaneously. The Voidborn operate on rigid patterns, Admiral Chen explained. They've never needed to divide their forces or respond to multiple threats. We're going to make them fight our kind of war. Maya worked through the night in the tactical center, finalizing the calculations for their first strike. The Meridian data showed clear patterns in Voidborn behavior, patterns they could exploit. They're not just predictable, she told Chen. They're overconfident. They don't even maintain proper scout patrols around their fleet formations. As the fleet prepared to depart, humanity held its breath. This would be their first step into a larger universe, and they were taking that step not in peace, but in righteous fury. The Voidborn had awakened something they couldn't understand. A species that had clawed its way to sentience through endless challenges, that had turned its own violent history into a strength. Evening Chime stood on the Terran Vengeance's observation deck, watching Earth grow smaller behind them. We asked for help, he said softly to Alina. You're giving us salvation. No, Alina replied, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. We're giving you justice, and we're going to teach the Voidborn why you should never corner a species that evolved as apex predators. The fleet engaged their Meridian-enhanced drives, preparing for their first faster-than-light jump. They carried with them not just weapons and shields, but the accumulated survival knowledge of a species that had never backed down from a fight. The Voidborn were about to learn that technological superiority meant nothing against an enemy who had spent their entire existence learning to overcome superior foes. The war for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity was bringing with them every brutal lesson learned from thousands of years of warfare. The age of unchallenged Voidborn supremacy was over. The time for retribution had come. The human fleet dropped out of quantum space near the Meridian colony of Twilight's Dance. They arrived just in time to witness 3 massive Voidborn vessels moving into attack position around the peaceful world. The black ships seemed to absorb starlight itself, their surfaces rippling like liquid darkness. Captain Alina Torres stood on the bridge of the Terran Vengeance, her expression calm despite the enemy vessels being 4 times the size of her largest ship. Battle stations, she ordered. Let's show them what happens when you pick on the wrong species. They're scanning us, Lieutenant Kai reported from Tactical. No change in their attack pattern. They don't see us as a threat. That's their first mistake. Alina smiled grimly. Launch fighters. Execute pattern Omega. Human fighters poured from the larger ships, moving in ways the Voidborn had never encountered. Instead of attacking in predictable formations, the Earth vessels spiraled and twisted through space, making them nearly impossible to target. The Voidborn ships fired their reality-warping weapons, expecting another easy victory. Instead, their attacks hit the modified Meridian shields and bounced back with doubled force. The dark ships shuddered under their own reflected energy. They're transmitting something, Maya announced from her science station. It sounds like confusion. They've never failed before. Evening Chime's inner light pulsed with amazement. They don't know how to react. Their tactical databases have no protocols for this situation. The human fleet split into 3 groups, executing a battle plan that looked like chaos to their enemies, but was actually perfectly coordinated. While the fighters kept the Voidborn weapons busy, the larger ships moved into position. Remember your training, Alina broadcast to all ships. They're bigger, but we're smarter. We're faster, and most importantly, we know how to adapt. The Voidborn tried to adjust their tactics, but centuries of easy victories had made them inflexible. Their rigid battle formations fell apart as human ships darted between them, striking from unexpected angles. On the Terran Vengeance's bridge, Evening Chime watched in amazement as the humans worked, making split-second decisions that would have taken his people hours of discussion. "Main batteries, fire," Elena ordered. The Vengeance's guns roared to life, sending modified Meridian energy bolts enhanced with human weapons technology into the nearest void-born ship. The dark, seemingly impenetrable hull cracked under the combined force. "They're trying to retreat," Kai reported with satisfaction. "2 ships are turning away from the colony." "Not today," Elena growled. "All ships, execute pattern Sigma. Don't let them escape to warn the others." The human fleet moved as one, cutting off the void-born escape routes. Space around Twilight's dance lit up with weapons fire as humanity demonstrated why they had survived every challenge their harsh world had thrown at them. The victory changed everything. The remaining void-born forces retreated to the edges of known space, their myth of invincibility shattered. But humanity's response surprised the galaxy even more. Instead of pursuing their beaten enemy, Earth turned its attention to protection and reconstruction. The technology developed to defeat the Voidborn was repurposed to heal the quantum damage they had caused. Human ships became guardians rather than just warriors. 1 year later, at the founding of the Galactic Defense Council, Admiral Chen addressed representatives from 100 species. "Earth was called a death world," he said, "because everything on it evolved to be lethal. But that's not what made humanity strong. What made us strong was learning to protect others with the same determination we used to protect ourselves." The Meridian ambassador, Evening Chime, glowed with approval. "You could have become conquerors," he said. "Instead, you chose to be guardians." "That's what real strength is," Elena replied, standing with her fellow captains. "Not just the ability to win fights, but the wisdom to know which fights are worth fighting." As the council session ended, Maya found herself looking at the stars through the station's quantum-reinforced windows. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had proved itself not just as warriors, but as protectors. The age of unchallenged aggression was over. A new era had begun, one where the children of Earth would use their hard-earned strength to ensure that no peaceful species would ever again have to face extinction alone. They had been forged in the crucible of a death world, but they had chosen to use that strength to protect life throughout the galaxy. "Multiple targets acquired," Kai announced, identifying weak points in their defensive grid. The Voidborn's defenses were formidable but predictable. Their patrol routes never varied. Their sensor sweeps followed the same patterns, and they never expected an enemy to exploit the quantum turbulence from their own drives as cover. "Launch the quantum mines," Marcus ordered. These were his ship's deadliest weapons, devices that used the Voidborn's own reality warping technology against them. When detonated, they would create a cascade of spatial distortions that would tear their targets apart from the inside. Elena's voice came through the quantum comm. "Terran Vengeance to Ghost Runner. Fleet is in position, awaiting your signal." The larger human fleet waited at the edge of the system, hidden behind a gas giant's magnetic field. They were the hammer, but first, the Ghost Runner would be the precision scalpel. "Miles away," Kai reported, dispersing along calculated vectors. The quantum mines drifted through space, their signatures masked by the background distortions from the Voidborn's own ships. Meanwhile, Maya worked at her station, using the enemy's quantum emissions to map their entire defensive network. "I found it," she announced suddenly. "The quantum resonance pattern at the heart of their shipyard. It's like nothing we've seen before. They're not just building ships there." Before she could finish, alarms blared across the bridge. A massive energy spike erupted from the center of the Voidborn facility, and reality itself seemed to twist. "By the stars," Evening Chime whispered, his crystalline form dimming in horror. "They're trying to create a controlled quantum singularity. If they succeed, they could tear apart the fabric of space across entire systems." Marcus's expression hardened. "Not on our watch. All hands, execute emergency protocol Omega. Maya, can we use their quantum signature against them?" Maya's fingers flew over her console. "Yes, yes. If we detonate the mines in a specific sequence, We can create a quantum feedback loop. Their own weapon will collapse in on itself. Do it, Marcus ordered. Elena, bring in the fleet. Hit them with everything we've got. The quantum mines detonated in perfect sequence, each explosion amplifying the next. The void-born ships, bound by their rigid protocols, couldn't react fast enough as their carefully ordered formation dissolved into chaos. The human fleet burst from behind the gas giant, weapons blazing. But this time, the void-born were ready. Despite their losses, they still outnumbered the human ships 10-1. They're adapting, Kai warned as enemy ships began to break from their standard patterns. They're learning. Good, Marcus replied. That means they can learn fear too. All ships, implement Battle Plan Delta. Show them what happens when you corner a species that evolved as prey and became predators. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. Human ships danced through the chaos, using the Voidborn's own quantum distortions as weapons. The Ghost Runner darted between capital ships, its quantum mines creating chain reactions that turned enemy formations into graveyards. On the Terran Vengeance, Elena orchestrated the larger fleet's movements with surgical precision. They want to use quantum singularities as weapons, she broadcast to all ships. Let's show them why you don't play with forces you don't fully understand. The combined effect of the quantum mines and the fleet's assault created exactly what Maya had predicted, a cascade failure in the Voidborn's superweapon. The massive facility imploded, taking the third of the enemy fleet with it. As the survivors flowed into quantum space, Marcus watched the debris field with grim satisfaction. Send word to Earth. Operation Shadow Strike successful. The Voidborn's superweapon project is destroyed. But Maya's expression was troubled as she studied her readings. Commander, the quantum signatures we detected. I don't think this was their only facility. There's something bigger out there. Something they're hiding. Evening chimes light pulsed with concern. The Voidborn are desperate now. The cornered predator is at its most dangerous. No, Marcus replied, his eyes hard. A cornered predator is predictable, and we're not the ones cornered. He turned to his crew. Plot a course to the next target. The Voidborn thought they could break the laws of physics without consequences. Time to teach them why some laws shouldn't be broken. The Ghost Runner vanished into quantum space, leaving behind a graveyard of broken ships and shattered ambitions. The Voidborn had finally learned to fear, but that lesson had come too late. Humanity had evolved beyond being mere prey eons ago, and now the galaxy would see why. The quantum distortion appeared without warning at the edge of the Sol system. Maya's new detection grid registered the breach immediately, a massive tear in spacetime that made all previous Voidborn incursions look like pinpricks. Through the swirling darkness came their largest fleet yet, led by a vessel that dwarfed even their massive capital ships. By all the stars, Evening Chime whispered, his crystalline form dimming at the sensor readings. That's the World Ender, the Voidborn's supreme command vessel. They've never committed it to battle before. Admiral Chen stood in Earth's Combined Defense Command Center, watching as the massive fleet approached. They're desperate, he observed. We've destroyed their shipyards, disrupted their supply lines, and shown them they're not invincible. Now they want to end this with one decisive strike. The Voidborn's message boomed through every communication channel, distorting reality with its power. CHILDREN of Earth. UHAVDFIDDA natural order. Subinide no. And your world will be guaranteed a swift end. Elena's voice came through from the Terran Vengeance. They still don't understand us at all, do they, sir? No, Chen smiled grimly. They don't. And that's why they'll lose. Execute Operation Prometheus. The trap that humanity had spent months preparing sprang into action. The quantum detection grid that Maya had developed didn't just track Voidborn ships. It had been gradually, subtly influencing their quantum drives, herding them exactly where Earth wanted them. Marcus's voice crackled through the calm from the Ghost Runner. All stealth units in position. Quantum mines armed and ready. The Voidborn fleet pressed forward, their formation now more adaptive than before, but still bound by their fundamental inability to truly innovate. They had learned to fear humans, but they hadn't learned enough. They're scanning for our fleet, Kai reported from Tactical. They expect us to meet them in open battle. Then let's disappoint them, Elena replied. All ships, execute Phase 1. Instead of facing the Voidborn armada directly, the human fleet had dispersed throughout the solar system. Each ship was positioned near one of the quantum resonance points Maya had identified, nodes where reality itself was slightly thinner due to the enemy's own technology. The World Ender's weapons opened fire, reality warping beams reaching out to where they expected the human fleet to be. Instead, they found only empty space and carefully placed quantum mines. The first detonation caught them by surprise. The second created a cascade effect. By the third, the Voidborn fleet found itself trapped in a web of quantum distortions of their own making. Their quantum drives are destabilizing, Maya reported, her eyes locked on the sensor readings. The feedback loop is working. The Voidborn's greatest strength, their reality warping technology, was becoming their undoing. Each attempt to power through the quantum distortions only made them worse. Ships began to break apart as space itself rebelled against their presence. But the World Ender survived, its massive form pushing through the chaos. Its next attack split an asteroid in half, demonstrating power beyond anything they'd seen before. All ships, commence Phase 2, Chen ordered. Show them why you don't corner a species that turned their own planet's attempts to kill them into strengths. The human fleet emerged from their hiding spots, but not to engage directly. Instead, they executed a maneuver that the Voidborn's tactical computers classified as suicidal. They dove into the quantum wake of the enemy ships. Readings confirmed, Maya announced. Their quantum signatures are destabilizing exactly as predicted. Ready for final phase. The World Ender's commander's voice boomed again. Your take TVCs are We VMAST FUNDMENTL forces of reality at TCLF. No, Elena replied as she gave the final order. You just played with forces you never truly understood. We actually learned to master them. Now, every human ship activated their modified meridian drives simultaneously, creating a resonance pattern that Maya had discovered in her research. The varied forces that the Voidborn used to warp reality turned against them. Their ships began to break apart from the inside as quantum fields collapsed. The World Ender tried to fire its main weapon one last time, but the beam curved back on itself, trapped in the quantum distortions. The massive ship's reality warping core went critical, creating a spectacular implosion that pulled its entire fleet into oblivion. In the aftermath, as debris rained harmlessly through space, Evening Chime's light pulsed with amazement. You didn't just beat them, he said. You used their own fundamental nature against them. That's what humanity does, Maya replied, watching the sensor readings return to normal. We take what tries to kill us and turn it into a tool for survival. The first Voidborn ship exploded in a spectacular display of shattering reality, its space-warping core overloading under concentrated fire. The second followed minutes later, torn apart by 3 human cruisers working in perfect coordination. The third tried to flee but found itself surrounded by fighters that seemed to ignore the laws of physics with their maneuvers. In the midst of the battle, Maya made a crucial discovery. Captain, their reality warping drives, they're creating quantum instabilities every time they fire their main weapons. If we time our shots just right. Elena understood immediately. All ships, target coordinates being transmitted. Fire on my mark. Now. The combined firepower of the human fleet struck the last Voidborn ship at the exact moment it tried to fire its main weapon. The resulting quantum cascade tore the massive vessel apart from the inside out. When it was over, 3 of the feared Voidborn capital ships were nothing but debris floating in space. The human fleet had suffered damage, but not a single ship was lost. "Send word to Earth," Elena ordered. "First engagement successful. No civilian casualties." She smiled grimly. "Tell them the Voidborn can bleed." On the colony below, millions of Meridians watched in awe as the debris of their tormentors burned up in the atmosphere like falling stars. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt something new. Hope. "We asked for help," Evening Chime whispered, his light pulsing with emotion. "You gave us salvation. This is just the beginning," Elena replied, turning to her crew. "Plot a course to the next target." The Voidborn thought they were invincible. Time to prove them wrong. As the fleet reformed and prepared to jump to their next objective, Maya approached Elena with new tactical data. "The quantum instabilities we observed, we can use this. Their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. They've never had to defend against an enemy who could understand and exploit their technology." The human fleet disappeared into quantum space, leaving behind a graveyard of broken Voidborn ships and a protected Meridian world. They had won their first major battle, but the war was just beginning. Yet not a single human showed fear. They had spent their entire history preparing for this moment, and they were ready to show the galaxy why Earth was called a death world. News of the human victory spread through Voidborn space like a quantum shockwave. For the first time in their history, the Voidborn High Command gathered to face something they had never experienced before: failure. The images of their invincible ships being destroyed by supposedly primitive humans sent ripples of fear through their empire. They didn't realize it yet, but the galaxy was changing. The era of the Voidborn's unopposed conquest was over. Humanity had entered the cosmic stage, bringing with them every hard-learned lesson from thousands of years of warfare. And they were just getting started. The stealth ship Ghost Runner slipped through the quantum wake of a massive Voidborn fleet, its modified Meridian cloaking technology making it virtually invisible. Commander Marcus Wright watched through the view screen as hundreds of enemy vessels gathered around their primary shipyard, a sprawling structure that seemed to bend reality around its edges. "They're marshaling their forces," Maya observed, her fingers dancing over the sensor controls. "But look at their formation, still the same rigid patterns. They haven't learned." The Ghost Runner was humanity's newest weapon in the war against the Voidborn. Small, fast, and nearly undetectable, it represented everything that made humans different from their enemies: adaptability, cunning, and the willingness to fight dirty when necessary. Latest intel from the Meridian networks. Kai reported from communications. "The Voidborn are calling this facility their Forge of Destiny. It's where they're building something big. A super weapon they think will turn the tide." Marcus smiled grimly. "They still think technology alone wins wars. That's why they'll lose." He turned to his crew. "Begin Operation Shadow Strike." The past 3 months had transformed the nature of the conflict. After their initial victories, humanity had shifted to asymmetric warfare, striking from the shadows and disappearing before the Voidborn could respond. Every human victory taught them more about their enemy's weaknesses, while the Voidborn remained trapped in their rigid tactical doctrine. Maya's research had been crucial. She discovered that the Voidborn's reality warping technology created quantum echoes, ripples in spacetime that human ships could track and exploit. What the enemy saw as their greatest strength had become a beacon leading humanity right to their most vital installations.